Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Jamie Hughes Show. My name as always is Jamie Hughes and today I'm going to be giving you my review of Yardie. Now if you want to keep up to date with all the latest movie news and reviews then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and as always in my videos this review may include spoilers so you have now been warned. Yardie is a really solid drama movie. Although it has some really hard hitting and poignant moments in this film, I just feel like it just lacked that little bit of something just to really elevate this movie into a great drama movie. But I still enjoyed this film and I think it was a great directional debut from Idris Elba. But one of my favourite things about this movie is that it is absolutely littered with brilliant performances throughout. I think Amil Amin is incredible in this movie. He plays the main character, D. You may remember Amil Amin, he was in Kiddlehood, which was a movie I was obsessed with. It was like the movie of my teenage years. Everybody loved it when it came out. He played Trevor in that, and I think in this movie he's even better. He's elevated his game because his performance was so good. There was a scene that really stuck with me throughout this movie, and that's when Stripe gets killed and it's kind of his reaction to that, and it's just, you know, there's no real big over the top acting, but it's just those little nuances and those little it's sort of the way his face acts, if that makes sense. It's just his reactions, and it was just such a strong and solid performance, and I really would not be surprised if this guy is nominated for at least a BAFTA when award season comes around for his performance of D in this movie. Another great performance that really complements Amil Amin's well is from Chantal Jackson, who played Vanessa, who was D's girlfriend. I loved Chantal's performance in this movie. I thought she was brilliant. There is a scene in this movie which I'll get onto in a little bit because it ties into another point where, my heart just broke for her. Oh man, it was so good, and I think that is like what worked so well for me, is that these two, Amil Amin and Chantal Jackson, had really great chemistry together, and it just made this relationship feel so real and loving and just feel like a real relationship. And I think that connection that they built with me and the rest of the audience just really drove this story forward and worked so well together. And then on the other side of the coin, I think my favourite performance in this movie comes from Stephen Graham, who played the absolutely mental and unhinged Rico. He was so good. He was so intimidating, so scary. Now I've seen a little bit of criticism online for this, is that the fact that his accent flutters between Jamaican and Cockney. Now although I do agree it was a little bit jarring, it only added to the intimidation and the fear for me because it just made him so unhinged. And I absolutely love Stephen Graham's performance in this movie. My only kind of negative for that is that I just wish Stephen Graham was in it more, because he was quite a restricted character and I would have liked to have seen him more on screen, but I don't really think that's a negative. But yeah, such great performances in this film. Another great thing about this movie is the way that it built up tension from the events that happen at the end of the film's first act all the way through to the end of the movie. And I think one of my favourite scenes in this movie I just really want to talk about because it was so well done, and for me it was the point where I really started to fall in love with this film because it just elevated everything to another level. Is where Rico's two goons return Yvonne's daughter to her in the hospital, and just that whole scene, my heart was in my arse watching it, honestly. I just could not believe what I was seeing. It was just so intense, and just, I couldn't move in the cinema. Like, genuinely, I've not felt like that in a cinema for ages. I was like, what's going to happen? Oh my God, this is terrifying. It just worked so well, and as I said before, it just really, that Chantal Jackson performance in that scene where she just kind of turns away from him and she's trying so hard not to cry. It just got me on every single level, and it was brilliant. And as I say, just that whole, from the scene where D runs off with the drugs from Rico, and then as we build to that all the way to this film's climax, was just so well done. The way it just slowly built up that tension, it was just so well worked. And although I enjoyed this movie, although I really did, there are a few problems with it. And I think one of the biggest issues I have with this movie is that I don't know how to describe it, to be honest with you. I don't want to call it messy because it wasn't, but there was a lot of shifts in this movie tonally, and they happen very, very quickly, and they happen kind of after some very poignant moments. They very quickly tried to change what was going on and the tone in this movie, and it worked in some places, but in other places it did feel quite jarring and disjointed. So there's a little bit of a shame to see, because if they'd have just been, I suppose the best way of describing this is that it was very noticeable, these changes. If they'd have blended between scenes quite nicely, I think I wouldn't have had an issue with it, but they just were a little bit too jarring, and they did stick out just a little bit. And then another issue I do have with this film is that, although I said I liked the slow burn of this movie, I did feel like the ending was a little bit rushed. I felt like we could have had maybe 5 or 10 minutes in that final sequence where we just got this really slow reveal. It just kind of happened a little bit too quick for me. I mean, it's not necessarily a negative because we have been waiting this long for kind of the resolution, but I just felt like it could have played out just a little differently. And then my final point on this movie, and I don't know whether this is a negative or a positive, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, is obviously the events that happen in this film are very hard-hitting and powerful, and I don't know whether I was supposed to feel like this, and I want to throw this question out to you guys as well, as how did you feel coming out of Yardie? But I just felt empty inside. I didn't feel happy for D. I kind of felt like, I kind of feel like I was starting to hate D for what he'd done to Clarence. I don't know. Like, I was happy that he was kind of at peace with things, but at the same time I wasn't happy the way that the events went down. It just left me feeling a little bit empty inside, and I don't know how to, I generally don't know how I feel about that. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know, but it's really made me think about this film, which has only made me like this film a little bit more. Does that make sense to you guys? But yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed Yardie. I think there was just something missing for me, but the fact that I'm still thinking about this movie a couple of days after seeing it, you know, that is a big positive for me. So if you guys have seen Yardie, let me know what you thought about it, as always, down in those comments below. And if you did enjoy this video and you want to keep up to date with all the latest movie news and reviews, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you, as always, in the very next episode of The Jamie Hughes Show. Ta-ra!